So hello and welcome to another episode of Rebel City Podcast. This week's guest, we've got the incredible privilege of speaking to James Allan from Glasvegas. Now, I don't think James or Glasvegas need much of an introduction when it comes to Scotland, Glasgow or the UK, but what an incredible chat we got with James. I mean, sat for him a couple hours, and what an amazing and down-to-earth individual he is for somebody that's had an incredible amount of success in his career. We covered a lot. I mean, growing up in the East End, professional football, the differences between then and now as far as like the psychological aspect of the football dressing room, what it was like being in the dressing room with some people that felt threatened by a 16-year-old. Then we moved into the music career, which obviously is what James is probably best known for. Spoke about forming the band, how he got into music, early success, and I think like some really incredible stories about some really famous people, including Noel Gallagher, Bono, Allan, McGee, and what a laugh we had. I mean, we had some serious chat in there, but he's just such a nice guy, and I couldn't have asked for a better guest. I think me and Matt really enjoyed this podcast. So I hope that you guys all enjoy it. Glasvegas have got a new album coming out, dropping in 2021, but they've just released a single called Keep Me a Space, and recommend that everybody go and listen to the new single, but also go back and listen to the back catalogue. I mean, the self-titled debut album is just honestly a timeless piece of indie music. Listening to it over the last couple of days a few times, it's as fresh as the day that I first heard it, and songs like Daddy's Gone, Geraldine, Football Talks and Flowers, I mean, it's hard-hitting stuff lyrically with a backdrop of some absolutely amazing guitar music. So again, like, a huge thanks to James. What an incredible conversation we had, and I hope you enjoy it. So hello and welcome to another episode of Rebel City Podcast. This week's guest, we've got a bit of a Glaswegian legend. It's James Allan from Glasvegas. How's it going, James?
Yeah.
Seen your wee smile there when I said you're a Glaswegian legend, mate. Oh, just destroying my phone.
I know.
But you know, you absolutely are, mate. I don't know, you're a bit of a mythical character when it comes to the Glasgow music scene. I don't know if I've seen many interviews like this.
Well, I think that's the interview you might run it on it. You know what I mean? When they see me sitting in my wee cherry head here.
It does ruin some of the mysticism,
that I've worked so hard all the years to build up, and I might just ruin it all here.
Well, that's
the chance we take every week. You know what I mean? Like, just ruining it.
Aye, absolutely.
It's really something, that cherry head, man. That bar's cherry head. It's
sugar high, mate. Sugar high. So you grew up in Kilmarnock in the 80s and 90s, buddy. When I was having a think about sort of Kilmarnock, I sort of came to the conclusion that I don't know why it doesn't have such a reputation. Like, we always hear about Easterhouse, Shuttleson. These are always, like, when people talk about the sort of the bits of Glasgow that were notorious for sort of gang culture in the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. They always talk about these areas, but people don't talk about Kilmarnock. But when I'm 36, I wouldn't have been near Baltic when I was a wee guy. Wouldn't have been near it. I grew up in Carntyne. And Matt grew up in Ridley.
Aye, Ridley.
I mean, they've all got characters, but they? Sure, like Ridley and all that had a few, and you know what I mean?
Aye, definitely.
Characters, but I know what you mean. It's it isn't somewhat. It's like to people that don't really know a lot about Glasgow, they probably wouldn't maybe know Kilmarnock or have heard of it. You know, they maybe here stay away from that area or that area, but maybe Kilmarnock's no. I don't know why.
It's a strange
for some reason,
me.
I had it in my head that Kilmarnock was just entirely warehouses. Like, for some reason, like, I didn't actually, you know, until recent years realise, especially with the regeneration run about that area, that, you know, folk had that always lived there, because any time I'd went down that neck of the woods, it was to go into, you know, a makeshift recording studio with you guys and sit in the back of a room while somebody fixed a motor on the other side of the warehouse, you know what I mean? So it's changed a lot now, but hasn't it?
I think it has. It's changed a bit. All that kind of, what is that? The Commonwealth thing?
The athletes' village and stuff that took the place of like the tenements and done that way. It's must be like a time warp for people. Like, it must be so strange. But what was your experiences like growing up in Kilmarnock? Like, did you have like a sort of good childhood when you were there, or was it like a wee bit rougher?
I mean, I guess I was just quite an excitable wee guy, I think, and I loved just basically going out and be a football, and had like and I grew up in 62 Lily Street, so it was like I had a wee bit that I could kick the ball against, like, you know, through a wee like space in the fence or that side of the road, and then when the ball would come back, and then I would go to the other side, and I could be just quite happy being out there all day and all night, and I was just like a wee kind of dreamer, you know what I mean? Just like just my heads were in the clouds and all that, and just like I was always like that. But I just, you know, I maybe had anything. Everybody was just, it was quite poverty, you know what I mean? But you don't really know anything. You think that everything's great and everything's amazing. And Celtic Park was just up the road. That was basically like it was like some magical, like, fantasy, like, building that was 5 minutes up the road.
Yep.
So you felt quite, like, you didn't feel poor, you felt like rich because you had that next to you. That's how that you would value and all that. And you know what I mean? But it's be things that you remember, like, it's just quite mad. You don't think it's mad at the time, but maybe as you get a bit older, then you realise it's a wee bit weird. And like things like, I was kicking the ball one day, and it was like Katie, my next door neighbour, I kicked the ball, and I seen it in slow motion going towards the window, and it was just like all the bits of glass in slow motion off one down. And I was just like, and the guy looked at his window, saw me, and I was like, and I ran into the house, and I was like, Ma, and my sister and my mum were sitting, and I was like, Ma, somebody smashed Katie's window. And my mum was like, who is it? And I was just like, me. So I couldn't think with my feet quick enough to make up somebody else's name. So, but then Katie had a black bag on her window for like about over a year. You know what I mean?
Right, aye, that's it. These are
Every
like
day for a year, I'd walk past this black bag, and I'd just be like, sure, no.
Just shaming you.
You don't think about that much at the time, but as you get older, you kind of realise how poor everybody is, kind of thing, you know? Like,
absolutely.
For that long, you know what I mean?
Aye, just the way that you told that story as well about a ball smashing a window, I can see why your lyrics are so good. Like, everything was all sort of visual, like everything happening in slow motion. So, are you sure you're no still a dreamer?
I'm describing it like that out of fear. Probably still the fear of the memory of it. Do you know what I mean? But it's like that. It's like that kind of thing you maybe see sometimes, where it's like some tragedy or humour in it, or some scary stuff, but that's quite funny, but it shouldn't be funny. You know what I mean? If it was like, you know what I mean? Like, this bizarre stuff. You know what I mean? And like being at school, doing it at Mongo's and all that, and I never knew. I mean, for the age, I say 12. I mean, when you're 12 years old, and your pal's got a sword in his trousers, and he takes it, and he knows that he's getting that day. So he takes the sword, and you're standing next to him, you hear him hitting another person with a sword in the head, makes a noise, a certain kind of noise. But you don't think that is going to stick with you, or that's going to. But as I said, when you get older, then you kind of you realise that isn't really. That's no just regular living.
It's not a normal thing. Certainly shouldn't be.
It was just like, oh, that was a funny noise. I didn't expect it to make that noise, but I didn't think any of these things affect you. But they probably do. You know what I mean?
Aye, absolutely.
Definitely.
I mean, we've had multiple people on talking about that. Now they're talking about like adverse childhood experiences, and I think like absolutely seeing hyper violence like that, and that's something that both me and Matt experienced in our teenage years, childhood and teenage
Definitely.
years. Is people like the normalization of stuff that when you grow up, maybe go to uni or you meet people and you tell them these stories, they're like, "Are you fucking kidding me on?" Like you're like, no, it's just totally normal for us to run about the scheme and you know what I mean, people getting stabbed, even though it seems wild, like you're saying, when you're that age, it's just part of sort of your daily life, isn't it?
As normal. As my fiance's for like a wee town in Sweden, and sometimes like, I'll tell her some bits and bobs, and I don't think she's as surprised now, but I think at the beginning she was probably a bit like, "Aye, that's different." You know what I mean?
Aye.
And I think sometimes when you're telling somebody outside a place where you're fair, then I think that then you can realise as you're telling them and you see as you're saying it out loud and they're listening, then you do realise as well, you know,
Aye.
because she her reaction or whatever, then you can tell, oh, that is going to be the most normal thing then.
Definitely.
So,
I think as well, I get it a lot with like foreign family, where they, you know, you catch up with people that you see every couple of years. They live in Canada and whatever else, and they give you, you know, tell us stories about, you know, Scotland, or tell us about, you know, and then you go into it with them, and you know they're looking for this wee nostalgic thing, and you've actually like ended up accidentally horrifying them. You know what I mean? Like,
I know. It's funny, some of the things you remember as a kid, but in it, some of the things that you remember, it's like Katie's windy and all that, it's like, aye, it's bizarre.
Aye. So see, obviously you're talking about football for a young age. Was the music something that was present in your younger days, or were you just all about the football back then?
I hated music, and I hated the idea of playing any instrument as well.
Really?
I thought I did. No, I don't know. Maybe I didn't. I'm just quite out of touch with how I feel. I'm quite emotionally slow. You know what I mean? So I could feel depressed, but I could feel the feeling of feeling depressed, but I wouldn't know about it for like 10 years. You know what I mean? So I could have loved music, but I wouldn't know about it for like 10 years. You know, and I think it's one of the things that when I was younger, it was just like my sister would play music in the house and stuff like that, and I just thought I didn't like music. But went to Butlins when I was younger, and we were in like a wee disco thing for kids or whatever, right? And I remember my uncle's man, he's not, well, it was like kind of getting dark outside, and I remember they were leaving, and there was a song that came on, and I knew that it got to a point in the song where the chord moved in a certain way. So they all walked out, and then I walked back into the place again myself, and I walked into this place. Like, I don't dance to it, no, I don't ever dance. I get a nosebleed when I get near a dance floor, and I walked in, and I just to hear this chord again, when it moved from this chord to that chord, and I remember like everybody shouting at me. I get into trouble because I left everybody and went back into this to hear this, and but I still thought I hated music. You know what I mean? So I'm quite out of touch with things that I like or things that I didn't like. You know what I mean?
Was there any music in the family? Because that type of ear that you're talking about, like, well, that's the I mean, I played in bands for 10, 11 years, and that's the type of ear that everybody that I've met that can play a musical instrument properly, or even just like has that sort of creative spark for music, they always talk about that thing where they're like, for an early age, I had something like that where I would be like, oh, I really like this bit here. And I would say to my mates, listen to this wee bit here, and they would be like, what are you talking about? I can't even hear what you're talking about. And it's something as subtle as the change of a chord. And so was there like music in your family before that maybe came through, like to give you that sort of thing?
Not that I know, really, no. You know, some people have told me, your granda played the harmonica for 5 minutes, you must get it for him. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, but I think I mean, I remember, I think a part of it was just, I was quite embarrassed as well. I was embarrassed to admit that I liked music. I was embarrassed. I remember with my mum and my stepdad, we went to Asda one day, and Asda's quite big, so you can kind of like lose them and then go to the music bit. And I went to the music bit and I bought a cassette tape, and I had to like put it in my pocket and hide it for them. So I didn't want them to know that I'd bought a music tape. I don't know why I'd done that, it's stupid. But, and then when I get home, I'd put headphones in and I'd listen to this Bruce Springsteen song. And I must have rewound and played this same wee tiny bit in the song, but I don't know, 50, 100, I don't know, 100 times, and I'd be pure lost in this thing. But I just thought everybody done that. Everybody was like weird like me, or I thought everybody was just the same. And even when I was like, learning the guitar, it was really just by accident how I started playing it. But when I had to say to my mum and my sister that that I was playing guitar, then I was pure like, oh, you need to sit down for a minute. I've got something to tell you.
I'm coming out as a guitarist.
And I remember this being absolute. My stomach just felt like it was upside down at the time when I was going to tell them. You know, like it was worse telling my mum that, you know what I mean, I was starting to play guitar. It was probably worse than, you know what I mean, probably worse than getting in jail or something like that. You know what I mean?
What age were you at when you started playing?
I must have been about 17 or something.
Right. So that's quite late, because normally you get the whole sort of Paul McCartney, I've been playing since I could remember, or like.
That's what I mean, but I'm always, it takes me like a couple of decades to realise if I quite like something more.
Aye. So where did the football career start? Like, where was your youth career in football? Like, where did you get your was there like what? Obviously, like, I know that sort of thing that you're talking about. You just go and kick the ball about the street, and I think like that's probably like a lost art nowadays, where you no ball games anywhere and stuff. But what was the first team that you played for?
First team I played for was Falkirk. I think I was like 15 at the time, and I played a game for the boys' club I was playing for, and I must have been a scout at the game. Signed me, signed another boy. We went to like this thing called the Milk Cup. It's like all the teams in Europe and all that go to Ireland for like a few days or whatever, and it's a tournament thing. And I think it was Falkirk, Man United, Brøndby, a couple of teams that was in the group, and they were like a year older. So it must have been under 16s, I was 15 at the time. But then when I came back for that, it must have been, let's say, a year later, Alec Totten had signed for had became the manager that day. And then I was coming in at Christmas time. I was at school at the time, but then I was coming in at Christmas just like full time. And I played a game that night and scored a couple of goals, and they just asked if I wanted to leave school and sign full time. So that's how that really happened. And then I must have played for, I think I stopped playing when I was maybe about 25 or something. I kind of retired, but I got asked not to come back, but I kind of say I retired. But it was them that told me, please don't come back, James. Please don't come back.
Right. You know what was the dressing rooms like back then? Like in the fucking in Falkirk and stuff. I mean, if you're a 16-year-old boy, like surely like the dressing rooms are wild.
They were just like cavemen. You know what I mean? I was quite I don't know. I didn't like standing out in the cold with like a pure wet, pure hard cruddy drill thing when I did that one. But it was like, when you get in there, it's like you need to kind of become a man quite quick, because you're like 16. And these guys, I get into the first team at Falkirk. Like, I left school when I was, I think I was like 16, 17. And I get into the first team within like 2 days or something. I've been at the team. So I left school I went in, and it just so happened that I played well in this game, and then I played well in training and all that. And then the manager just put us in the first team. And then so you've got these guys here, and then you've got a bunch of other guys that are only playing, that are trying to get in the first team. And then when you walk into school, then it's just, you don't know this at the time, but the guys are just like, fuck him, man. You know what I mean? He's just turning up. The arsehole's turning up to school.
Because they're all grafting for the spot as well, aren't they?
He's trying to make me in training. Fuck him. Don't fucking do that. And it was quite like that. You just need to. You don't have a clue what's going on, man. But it does make you. It is quite cruel. You know what I mean? Some of the ways that guys love each other, I was always quite surprised, and I always felt quite sorry for some people because I had a temper, like I had a bit of rage in me, but I was never. I was quite a soft kind of like I would always feel just sorry for people or like kind of like that kind of thing, but I used to just, every day I'd be swinging punches at guys that were like twice my age and all that. Like, and then the manager would just be like, James, who's your bad? Just you going back earlier and train with the young boys kind of thing. I fucking hate that, you know what I mean? That's probably the way it is in every club. You know what I mean? You probably hear a young guys that just would fight back with other people, and then the manager would be like, oh, well, we respect that because like he's, but with there, it was kind of like treating a lot of kind of like mediocre players like better than what they were. You know what I mean? Like the first team guys, whereas they shouldn't have probably had that much respect. You know what I mean? They'd have probably been a better team for it, but that's kind of the way it was. So it was kind of a lot of young boys were just I don't know, it's quite hard for them, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Do you think that you would have preferred it the way it is now, where a hell of a lot of like psychologies come into how they try and bring people through?
I don't like to say that about myself because I would like to think of myself as being tough, not, but nah, I think I would have. I was at a Celtic game. When was that? Maybe a wee while ago, maybe a year ago or so for that, and I just went to the game to watch, that, but they must have found out that I was at the game, so they asked me to do this raffle hang at half time.
The Paradise Windfall draw, mate. That's one of my goals in life. I want to get this podcast big enough so I can do the Paradise Windfall. No, really, no, but it's fucking class. Like, I just want to know if it's rigged. We need to know if it's rigged. Is it real?
It's real. The thing is, so I was sitting my toffee crisp in a hangover, right? I was sitting my can of Iron Brew that I took into the game, and the security came in. And he was like, I need to take that off you. So I was in a wee kind of family bit, right? So they all turned around and looked at me, and I was just like, give the guy the can of Iron Brew, right? And then they phoned somebody who was next to me and said, can James do the raffle off time to somewhere, right? And I was like, aye, all right, cool. Then this same security guard came back and he was like, can you come with me? And everybody thought, what's he done? What's he done? He's getting flung out for something. And then he's going to walk on the pitch. They see me walking on the pitch to do the raffle, and they're all like, the guy, the can of Iron Brew took off from 5 minutes ago. But when I went out, I was talking to the guy and I was just like, what did I do here? Like, I've just got asked to do this 2 minutes ago, what have I do? And Glasvegas is blasting all the speakers now. I was like, oh, no, man, I just wanted to keep my hood up and keep myself to myself, man. It's good on here. And he says, look, I've been doing this since the 80s, man. Nothing can go wrong. It's like nobody's ever go right. All you do is you just pick the thing up. It's fine. Pick a bit of paper out. It's cool. It's like, well, that sounds all right then. I guess I don't need to say anything. I just picked a bit of paper out. And then when I get out there, I picked a bit of paper out and there was another one stuck to it and I gave him 2. And he looked at it and I could see he nearly fainted, man. And he flung one back in. I shouldn't say this, but he flung one of the numbers back in. And he just looked at me like, you fucking idiot. It's like, I've been doing this since the fucking 80s and I told you nobody's ever fucked this up. I was just like, it was just a look, man. And so somebody,
Tony Hamilton?
I can't remember who the guy was, but the guy was nice enough, but like, he gave me that, nobody came down to claim the winning. And I was like, wait a minute here, how much did he get? It's like, is it 10 grand? 10 grand, right? And I was like, I was waiting for the person to like, so, no, nobody, and I was like, 10 grand? This is like parkade. It's like, who's thinking, I'll just no bother, I need to just shoot away, I'll get it later. It's like 10 grand here. No, he's a bottom class book, and he's like, no, this happens all the time. I was like, how's that? And he's like, it's just guys don't want their wives to know, they don't want their pals to know, so they just don't say anything. And then they'll come back down later, but they'll get their 10 grand. They always come eventually.
See, I was going to say
that happens all the time.
That's probably the real reason, because I was going to say they too pissed at the game to even realise that they've won it, but
I've definitely
definitely
wondered.
It's about their wife and their fucking pals wanting a tap, isn't it? That's why they're
terrible, That's fucking terrible. Not so much the wife thing, but the pals thing.
The pals, aye.
Sorry, I came in for the wife, but no, the pals, that's right, man. No getting around, no buying a cup.
I've just won 10 grand, I'm not getting the beers in at all, lads, sorry.
Fucking shocking. But no, that's one of the points that like people talk. I mean, me and Matt are both Celtic fans, and that's quite a lot of sort of Celtic Twitter. They go, there's a conspiracy theory that's gone about that the Paradise Windfall draws a load of shite and that it's all rigged. So I'm going to make that into a small clip and put it on Twitter.
Can't be rigged if I was like, no, it's not.
No, I mean, you're in good company with the Windfall draw as well. My favourite was Jim Bowen, but I'm a wee bit like surprised that so little prep goes into it. I would have expected that if somebody was being like, "Did come and do the Windfall draw," there'd be like a bit of notice, a ticket for the VIP area, like a pure posh pie and stuff like that, like a pint of lager at half time. But they're just like pure. Who's out there? There's a guy from Las Vegas. I
think what it was. I don't know if somebody who ever have been gone with. I don't know if they've said that was it. But it must have been somebody else was supposed to do it. And then, but I was on the pitch before the game, and this is why I was thinking of this, because we were talking about the way like the psychology and music, how it's different and all that. At Partick Thistle we were playing, I think that day. Partick Thistle was. And the assistant manager, Scott McKenzie, the assistant manager, at the time, he was my pal for Falkirk. And so he was doing the warm-up with Thistle, but when I was talking to him, he was talking about how different it is now. You know, how different it is from when I was playing or whatever. Because you don't really know, but when you stop playing, I couldn't really tell you what exactly it's like, but for what I hear, but it is a lot different, and it's just different. But then again, maybe it's the same with most jobs and all that, or most places will become maybe a wee bit more civilised, I don't know.
Aye. I think PFA does some great work, and I think when you were talking about being a young guy fresh out of school, 2 days into a dressing room full of professionals that are all now looking out their shoulder at you because you've taken one of their places, like, and then you having the issues with that anger that you said you had, like, that seems to me like something that would have been the textbook definition of, an additional bit of support that was needed for a young guy, and I do think that is something that is more prevalent in the game now.
It is. It's like, but then it was just you don't really, the thing is, when you're a young boy, you don't really realise a lot of the reasons for things. You don't know that guys that are like twice your age, you don't know that they're mentally ill. You don't know that they're fucked up. Yeah. You just think that whatever they're saying to you is true. You know what I mean? You're a loser, you're shit, you're the worst football player. And a part of me was always a wee bit cocky, or a wee bit like, I don't know where I got that from. A part of me always, when people would be that way, a part of me always looked down on them. You know what I mean? I think it made them even worse. But there was a few of the guys that was characters that I was really, really lucky that I got to meet. You know what I mean? Some players like Derek Ferguson. He was a really kind guy, so he was. The ex-Rangers player, Derek Ferguson. He was one of the guys that was different for the other players. He was like kind, and it's funny because one day, I think it was the semi-final of the Scottish Cup against Hearts, and so we were like away at some golf course, staying for the night or something like that before the game, and I remember sports team was doing like the interviews with the players, and they were interviewing him, so they're going in the players kind of thing. And I was a young boy in the squad. I'm sitting back just watching it all kind of thing. and they interviewed these guys, and all the guys are like trying to speak in a way that people are going to understand and all that. And then he came to Fergie, and he was just like pure Glaswegian. He was just like, and I remember all the guys looking at Fergie and being a bit like kind of no sniggering, like laughing at him, but I think they were just a bit like, wow, you know what I mean? Like he's just, this is what it is, pure confidence.
He's not modulated himself because there's a camera in front of him.
No, I know, he just looked pure like comfortable, you know what I mean, and confident and that, and I remember thinking, wow. And then when I first started singing, and then when I have thought about Fergie, you know what I mean, I think back to that, and I don't know if there's, in some ways, they're the things that probably do affect you when you're younger in a way that probably does influence where you go, you know what I mean? If I wouldn't have seen guys like Fergie doing that,
I'd be assured within themselves.
Well, maybe I'd be singing, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Aye, because it's somewhere that'll go in there somewhere. And then you pick up. Fergie was the only guy, he was the only guy who like, bring your guitar in. He won't even remember that sort of thing. But because it was about that time I started playing guitar. So it'd be like, here, Jimmy, you didn't hear this? This cunt's playing the fucking guitar. This cunt here. And that guy would be like, you fucking play the guitar? Yeah, Tony, come here. This cunt's playing the fucking guitar. And then you'd have all these fucking guys around you, man. You'd just be sitting there like, fuck, man, this is like, you're not, if you don't aspire to have some pure plastic bird and some shitty, cheap sports motor, then you play golf and all, then you must be like kind of weird. But Fergie, he came in amongst everybody and sort of a real party, to be honest. Nobody would fuck Fergie, right? So when he walked between everybody, he's like, you play the guitar? That's fucking brilliant, man. That's brilliant. Bring it in. We'll get a bottle of wine, we'll go to the park. But what can you play? Can you play Wonderwall and all that? Aye. That's amazing, man. And it's all these wee hyenas that are around Fergie then, all just pure quiet and doing. Because he says it's alright. You know what I mean?
Hierarchy of the dressing room, man.
So I always love Fergie for that. He won't know this. Derek Ferguson, I've not seen him since he days. So he won't even have it.
He's been doing a lot of media, Derek Ferguson, and I think since he started doing a lot of the media, people have got an appreciation for just how nice a guy he is. I think like him and Barry, they've got a bit of a reputation, especially amongst sort of Celtic fans as well. It's like, oh, don't like them, don't like they two or whatever like that. And since he's actually started doing things like Open Goal and doing podcasts and stuff, they're like, he's a fucking cracking guy. And also, he doesn't give a shit. Like, football players they don't care about Celtic, Rangers, any of that sort of nonsense.
Yeah, I remember one day in training, it was like, Totten must have said something to Derek. And he just turned around and he was just like, who the fuck are you talking to, you fucking prick? Fucking where are you? And then Totten was just like, fuck. And nobody done that, man. Nobody done that. I would never. I would never have even thought about it, man. And I wouldn't have minded. I remember getting into fights with a lot of players when they were older and all that, and I just couldn't walk away. If somebody would say something, I just had to. I was just out of control. You know what I mean?
That might be the actual effect. Like that thing we were talking about earlier, like the pure hyper violence when you're growing up. That's the type of things.
Probably that's what you know. And most of the time I wouldn't give a fuck about it either. I would have done the same thing again. But because I was like, I remember there was one time, but I did regret it. Like, one of the guys was a dead nice guy as well. There was only a handful of guys that were nice. See everybody else, man, it was just, I don't know, they were just quite bullies, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And I just couldn't go it, man, you know what I mean. But aye, so there was one David Taken who passed away. You know David Taken? Like he was such a lovely guy, man. And it was just because I was in that mode. I remember one day we get tangled up or something, and I just swung about at him. And he was just like, I'll fucking break your legs if you ever do that again. And that was the one time where I just, right away, I was just like, and he would have, he'd have killed me. He's a pure beast, so he was. But and that was the one time where I just right away I just felt like, James, what the fuck are you doing, man? So this guy's amazing, man. He's always good to us and all that, but I just couldn't help myself, you know what I mean? Just couldn't. I said sorry to him, man, and he was like, it's all right, kind of. But Fergie was some player as well. He was amazing. But then Barry actually, we played against Rangers in a pre-season game. Barry won't remember this year, but when we played against Rangers, I think after the game, Barry must have been looking for Derek in the hallway or something like that. So I took Barry to get Derek, you know what I mean, wherever Derek was, you know what I mean. So I have met him before briefly, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. I'm a bit
I think it's weird that how people can get a wee bit like. It's weird how sometimes you think you've got a perception of somebody's being a certain kind of. It's just the way it is in life, I guess. And in some days you can just get different people in different moods and all that. You know what I mean? I know I've been like that myself loads of times. You know what I mean? But being different.
You forget how much it's within perception is skewing so much as well. Like you, as you say, you see the guys who are now pundits on either side of the football divide in Glasgow, and you've come to it with a certain level of your own perception. But then, if you actually listen to what folks say, a lot of the time they are 9 times out of 10 sound. You know what I mean?
I know people, man. It's like, and when it be Celtic or Rangers and all that, I think that, you know what I mean. Some of the Rangers guys that have hung out and all that have been. It's just been dead funny or nice and all that, and it's true. It's when you don't really know somebody, there's blanks, and you fill these spaces in with your own like hang-ups.
Your own narrative,
your own fears. Sure. That you just fill it off, man. Instead of assuming, they're probably really kind or they're nice and all that, or they're cool people. You just fill it in with negative shit, especially when they wear blue strips.
Cool. So it sounds as though, like, obviously you were saying you were just sort of picking up guitars as you went into the sort of football side of things. Was there a point at which where you felt like the sort of music side of things was starting to sort of take over for the football in your life?
Pretty much when I first signed professional, really, I think. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, just bad timing or whatever. Good timing. It was just one of the things. It was just, I think I'd be sitting in a car park or whatever before I'd get into football, and I'd be waiting for the song to finish and all that. And before I'd get into training, I'd need to wait on the song finishing that I was listening to. Probably not a good sign, you know what I mean? But that's pretty much when it happens, really. You know what I mean? I think with football, music, it's like, when you're doing like that, it's like you can't really kind of dip your toe in. You've got to give yourself to it completely. You know what I mean? It just is the same. I think it was the same when I was at Dumbarton and the last football team that I played for. When the manager said, "Don't come back," it's probably the best thing that could have happened as well.
Right.
If he wouldn't have done that, then I'd have still been doing, like, you know, maybe writing an odd song or whatever, and then going to football or whatever. But when he done that, then it was just I had nothing else to do. I had no job, you know what I mean? Nothing. So then that's when I wrote the band's first album, really. So, you know, he could have done me a favour there. At the time, I was like thinking, what am I going to do now? You know what I mean? No money, I have nothing. You know what I mean? I've no get money to have electricity and all that, and be sitting with a guitar with no power in the house, you know what I mean? But it was probably the best thing that could have happened in a way. You know what I mean?
That's pretty cool in a sense.
It's cool. It's cool. It's romantic for you. It's romantic. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like that's the way you want the guy in the band to be. But when you're doing
you're loving it.
Do you know what? When I was loving it, it's you don't really think it being that bad. You think there's always a constant worry about, like, a constant feel somewhere that it's like, you know what I mean, about having money to get food to eat and all that, or that's always there, but you're used to that being there. So I don't really know if you really think about it as being. Maybe I just knew this was the way it was supposed to be, because I think at one point I went to the job centre and I was going to like kind of every couple of weeks. Then they would if you get a job yet, you're looking for a job or whatever. And at this point, I just thought I should just maybe try and get a job. You know what I mean? Because I hate being money and she's hard to go in and all that. And at this point, I was just like, you know what I mean? I need to do something. And I went up to my ma's house and I had this application form for a driving job. And I was like, I'm just going to try and get this job, I think. And my ma was just like, don't get the job. I was just like, but I hate getting money off you, you know. She was like, James, don't get that job. She's like, the songs that you write, people are going to know them someday. And that application form for the job, my sister put it in a frame somewhere. So it's like James Allan, driving job and all that. Because on the back of it, Daddy's Gone, there's all the lyrics for it. For the song Daddy's Gone. Aye.
That's awesome.
I know. It's funny how things can be in time. It can be like, I don't know, just quite magical things like that. You're like, wow, man, how did that happen? But then I guess it was my man. That was the important part. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. That's like the opposite of what the majority of people that end up making it in the arts tell you. It would always be their mum and dad going, "Nah, you need to get a job."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it sounds like your mom's really had a belief in you. Like, was she listening to the songs? Obviously, were you staying at the time? Was she hearing the songs that you were writing?
I don't know. No, because I was at the time I was staying in a house. I'd never able to stay basically at the time, so it was like it was just sort of somebody else's house, and it was like they weren't staying in it. It was nothing in this wee house. It was just a wee tiny house. So I wasn't even supposed to be there. And then it was like, it was my sister was a social worker at the time, a drugs addiction social worker. And that's how I met Geraldine. I met her through Denise. And so Denise she just basically said, so do you get a gig with your band? And I was like, no. She was like, do you want me to help? I'll get you a gig. And I was like, aye, cool. And that's how she started managing the band. So then when she started managing the band, she wanted to give me her time yet, kind of thing. So she went part-time with social work. And she moved into that flat that I was in, this wee tiny house. And one slept on the couch, another one would be in the room, and all that. And it was like, I didn't really think anything at the time. I just thought this was the way it was meant to be. But so my mum wouldn't have. I don't think she'd heard the odd song or whatever. You know what I mean? But I was always too shy to like sing, you know that. And like somebody would ask me to sing a song, I would never do it. So that's when that kind of came about. Really, with these songs, it was about that time when no fit body job. Don't get the job. Keep doing that, and then that's how it's. So it's, but you need all these wee things probably to happen in your life. And I think that if one of these wee things weren't there, you know what I mean. It's like it's hard to imagine it. Anybody having been aware that I existed. You know what I mean. If my sister didn't come into like manage. I mean, she'd never managed before. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But she just thought, well, I think I'm going to manage this. And it's like, we've not really got any proof as to why this should work. There's no like, well, you know, a sheet of paper and we're working it out. Like, on paper, it's not work. It's not going to work. You know what I mean? It's like guys singing like in Glaswegian about this and that. Daddy's Gone. It's like, there wasn't like a point of reference that we could say, well, it worked for them, kind of thing, so it's got to work for us, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, man.
But at the same time, I just knew it was going to, I just thought that it was going to work out. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's just because I'm a bit of a dreamer and like I imagined it working out like that. But I mean, when we've been playing at Wembley Stadium or something, there was a part of me that just wasn't surprised. You know what I mean? But I don't know if that's because it was familiar to me because it was the way I imagined it being. You know what I mean? So then when it did that, I was like, well, I'm familiar with this because that's the way I kind of
imagined it. I think when people, there's a lot of sort of wishy-washy and a lot of sort of very much like new age stuff about purpose, and they talk about like when you're in your purpose. But I think, see, when you find something like that and you know in your bones that this is something that you want to do, I think that it is easier. But there's a lot of people out there that force themselves to do these things. Do you know what I mean? They think, I want to be in a band, I want to be a musician, and they sort of force themselves into that sort of area. Whereas with you, it sounded like it just, you do get this sort of thing. A lot of sort of very successful songwriters and musicians will tell you that it just felt right, and I didn't doubt it, and it just happened in front of me. And like you're saying, I wasn't surprised. You know what I mean?
That's you're right, because it's like it's hard to measure in music or art, any art, it's hard to measure if it's good or bad, you know what I mean? But I think that you can't deny if something feels just, you know, if you meet a lassie, or if it's a friendship you've got with somebody, it's your best pal, there's certain things that nobody can tell you any different. It's just how you feel about it. And when we first started practicing, when we'd play like maybe a song like Daddy's Gone, you know, and nobody'd ever heard it or whatever, then I mean, I could feel like the air moving in the room in a weird way, that it was like, even if it was something that I didn't want to really sing about, or it wasn't really a choice, it was just basically, this is a vehicle that you're going to use to mirror a lot of your personality and reflect that outwards, you know what I mean? And this is how you're going to do it, and you don't really know why you're going to do it. There's no really it's mad in a way, but it just feels like it just feels right, you know what I mean? And it feels more right than anything else does, you know. So it's like everything's confusion and hard. So it's like you don't really know what's happening. Then when you put the guitar on and you're in that room and that the sound happens, then all that confusion goes away, you know. For some, and I don't know why that is. And when it's like that, and even if somebody was to say, yeah, that won't work or whatever, that's like silence. It's like floating by you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, white noise, just absolute white noise. Did you coin the band name? Did you come up with the band name?
Aye. I just thought when we need that name, but if we get a band name, then I want to be in a real band, and if we get a name, then we're a real band. And I just thought the name. I got a big Glasvegas, and he was like, aye, that's the name, that's the band name. I was like, really? And he's like, aye, no, that's brilliant, that's the name. And I was like, all right, cool. I was quite surprised.
You literally coined a phrase that I remember at that time, that everybody, when your band came out, no, I knew, because me and Matt were about the music scene. Like I said, I played in bands, so I knew that you were kicking about just before it actually went like mega with the album and stuff. And I remember at the time, all the sort of hipsters in Glasgow were all saying, oh, I'm heading into Glasvegas for a night out. You almost coined like a phrase for a night out in Glasgow. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that is something that at the time everybody just started using it.
I just like the sound of it, like.
Right, so there's no combination of Glasgow and Las Vegas. You're no like.
No, not really. I mean, I really like Las Vegas. I'm not. I hate gambling. That. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like the Beach Boys don't surf in it. It's like they don't like surfing it. It's like that probably. But
we're just dispelling the myth of the shop here.
There's certain words that I don't like the sound of them. Then there's other words that I just like to say it. I just liked when I said it. It just sounded nice. Like, you know what I mean? Like Tina Turner or something. I like the sound of that, but Tina Turner's took, so I need to get something different.
Wait, man. So what was it like at the start? Like, did yous do, I mean, yous were, when yous came out, it was at that sort of weird time where the internet hadn't quite took fully grip of the music scene, but the Arctic Monkeys had just came before it, who had managed to date through things like MySpace. They were in the very beginnings. But the Jews, I mean, my memory of you guys in that time was that you were always fucking gigging. You were constantly playing. If it was Barfly or whatever it was in Glasgow, the music scene was really pumping at that time as well. But did you go through like the old school building a following through gigs and touring, or did you have like a sort of hybrid thing where people cottoned on online but also were coming to the gigs?
I think it was, I just remember, I can't really remember, I remember playing like a few gigs that was like in like maybe wee bars in Glasgow, and then it would be like, I think we were playing at one point, then we were playing a gig in King Tuts, and when we played the gig and somebody said, oh, the gig's sold out, and I was just like, how's it sold out? Like, that's mad. And I think I thought it was for the other band that was playing or something.
Aye, who else is on?
Aye, and then people, all these people were at the gig when we came in to play, and they were like singing the songs, and they must have known them through Rab used to put them on MySpace, and I was just like, and I still am a bit like, do you know what I mean? Like, out of touch with things, and I didn't even know that he'd put the songs on MySpace, you know what I mean? And so I was just like, he was like, aye, I put the songs on MySpace, and I was like, oh, did you know? Aye.
They're my songs, mate. What are you doing with my songs?
Aye, so I think that's how people became aware of some of the songs. Then what happened was we played, then we went down to London, we played a gig, we played like 2 gigs or something, and I remember one of the gigs I thought was terrible. It was like, we were at other place, it was like, you know what I mean, before you even hit a chord, it's like I kicked a bottle of beer out, and it's just pure, like, stage is just like a massive puddle right in the middle of the stage. I've got these shoes on with holes in the bottom of them, so all the beer's leaking through my foot. I don't like wet socks, man. I don't like that. If I see somebody, if I see my wee lassie, she's walking in the house with her socks on, right, and she walks into the bathroom, and somebody says a shower, and there's like any water on the floor or anything like that. It's like I'm pure like pure slow motion running towards her. No, and she's just like, what is it? And I'm like, look, it's wet. And she's like, that's so? Don't care? I'm like, you don't care? But if your socks get wet? Anyhow, so I got pure a one wet fit during the gig, and then after the gig I came off, and it was like Columbia and Sony. They came to see the band, and they were just like, they were just blown away and all that, and they were like, and I was like, you want to sign us after that? I was like, these guys don't know anything, man. Like, that was terrible. And then after that, it was like the NME was writing things about the band, and I think then it was just made of everybody else sort of like want to sign the band and take us out for like dinner and all that, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Did feel like when you popped onto the scene there was like quite a lot of, as you say, quite a lot of hype around you in the early days, but then it seems like it took a bit of time to actually put like the debut album together. What was like the process like for getting in and writing for so long?
Well, we signed, I think it was, if I remember rightly, Rap's better with these things with dates and that, but I think it was like January time, I think, when we signed, and then it was actually quite, I mean, for January, then I think we went to New York to record the first album. So we recorded that in Brooklyn, and so we went, say January, we were in New York for about March, I think. I remember it was like St. Patrick's Day we were there. So when St. Paddy's Day, when's that? Is that March or something?
Aye, mid-March, aye.
Is it? So it must have been then. So then for March, then you recorded, I think the first single was Geraldine, and we were on like the Jules Holland programme maybe in the summer before the album came out or whatever, and then the album was September. So I guess when you look at it from the side, it would maybe seem like it'd be a while longer, but just went to record it and all that, you know what I mean?
Was it like going out to New York to record your album, like a boy for fucking Kilmarnock kicking up in
Nah,
Brooklyn and
nah,
fucking on a major record label, you know what I mean?
I'd never been to America before, innit, so it was all just like quite your head would be spinning, you know what I mean? It'd just be like, but it'd be amazing though. It felt amazing, and it felt like you know what I mean, like it was always supposed to be like that, you know what I mean? I always thought that this was the way it was meant to be, and I was dead lucky, but you know, I was just there's a lot of things that it was just luck, you know what I mean? And but it was just pure exciting, man, you know what I mean? And then, you know, just when you start to hear the music starting to work out and when it's coming out the speakers, like, because although you're in New York now, but there's always that thing. It's just like the door's always left open where you're just like, until the thing's done, until it's mastered and it's done, it feels like it's hanging together with a thread or something. You know what I mean? You can have like the best song I've heard a lot of songs before in the past that have been good, but it just never worked out on the record or whatever. And because we'd recorded the songs, like the demos already, people liked them. Then I think there was even more pressure on like not even just us, but the record label and all that. And the record label would just be like freaking out, you know what I mean? Like, because that had to work. It had to work for them with the deal that they gave us and with the hype that was in the band. So you can kind of feel that. You can feel that nervousness, man, of everybody running about you, and you know what I mean. And I don't know, part of me was probably just quite naive and just quite just oblivious to some of the pitfalls anyhow, which is probably a good thing, you know. And then there was times like even with the artwork and all that, well, I had to be quite like a pain in the arse about it, you know what I mean. I was a pain in the arse about the artwork. I was a pain in the arse about the sound being right and all that, and I must have just been like, you know, like I was in a conference call when we first got to New York. They'd suggested artwork for the album, and I'd already decided that I was wanting to have Starry Night, the Van Gogh painting. I was just wanting to have that basically, and then I was thinking it'd be quite good to have the band's name on it, and I don't want to put that on his painting. So like anyhow, so just. And we were going down to Master Geraldine and like Hell's Kitchen somewhere. So we were walking with the actual tape, the recording tape, you know what I mean? That's how it wasn't like a name, it wasn't like a...
It's real.
Aye. So we were getting cutting through Hell's Kitchen with this real, and I'd had this big argument with the record label. It was like a conference call with 5 people. And they were saying it was this woman that worked at the label, and she was just fucking vicious, man. And she was just like, right, here's the artwork. What do you want? What one do you want? And I was like, none of them. She's like, what? What do you mean none of them? I was like, I don't want any of these. And she was just like, can you tell me what's wrong with them? And so my sister and all these people, my sister manages, all these people are in the phone call, and I just got pure, I was just like, listen, it's fucking terrible. I was like, Mum, I could have done better than that. It's terrible. I don't want anything to do with that artwork, and it was just pure silence, man. And I think that just made people just like, I fucking hate that guy. But I was just like, you need to understand that I don't want normal. I don't want what you put and you get other bands. I don't want that. That's not what I want. That's not the mentality I joined a band with. I'm a different animal. I'm probably an animal that you're probably not going to like, man. Because what makes it maybe a bit easier for you, the new, later on it won't make it easy for you, but because it's not going to be very good. I'll make it easy for you. You think I'm making it hard for you, but if you just follow the way that I'm looking at it, there's more chance that it's going to make it easier for you later on, because it's going to be really good, and it's got to be something more true than just being something that's pure. If somebody sent something that doesn't even want about the band, it could fit for like 5 different bands.
Yeah,
some plastic thing, you know what I mean? So we'd had this big argument, and then we were going down with real tapes through Hell's Kitchen, and there was these 2 guys cutting across us with this massive. It was like a sheet of glass or something. The way two guys would carry a sheet of glass, and we're walking, and we'd just stop, like, you know what I mean, to let them past. And these guys are shuffling by us. They're like Starry Night. And it's not the Starry Night. It'll be somebody's got a print or somebody's got a, but this big massive Starry Night. Because that's another thing in the phone call. She says, "Well, what do you suggest then?" And I was just like, "Starry Night, thank God." And she was like, "Oh, that's what you want for the front cover? We'll never be able to get that."
How are we going to get the license to use a Van Gogh painting?
And I don't know. Well, the thing is, I don't really know anything about the business, but I don't reject. And it's the public domain. So I says, "It's the public domain, like I'm writing about the business. She must think I'm on it, you know what I mean?" And so she was like, "No, it's not." I was like, "It is." "No, it's not." She was pure adamant. Later on, she found out it was. And she says, "I tell James that it is in the public domain. Then you get a proper James, you were right." You were right. And I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't satisfied with my sister passing on to me. But anyhow, when I left that phone call and we were going to Master Geraldine, and these guys it was the same day. I just thought, what the fuck, man? See if Manty was here right now, Manty would be like, "It's a sign."
Aye, for sure. That's so fucking strange.
She rabs my loves shit like that, man. Do you know what I mean? She says that about anything, but it's a sign. It could be anything, you know what I mean? But I think that chances of that, like,
I made a promise to whom will not to you, so stop the party. I tried to reconcile a life I lived a while. Just stop the party. Feeding lies like you'll never know. I don't need to be unhappy with a life to call my own. We'll end up burning bridges sat upon a selfish throne. I will march along this path of ambitious, forceful times. I'll be dead before it crashes down before my eyes. I know we'll make it through smiles and trials of fire. We'll make the party. I see right through it, the great deceptive fate you call the party. Feeding lies like you'll never know. I don't need to be unhappy with a life to call my own.